Welcome back to the lab, everyone. It looks like you guys really enjoyed the last glitch breakdown, so why don't we go over some more Gen 1 shenanigans. There's a good chance you've at least heard of the term Glitch City, but what exactly is one? The extremely simple way to explain it is that it's a messed up map that usually looks something like this. However, looking at it from a technical perspective, there's several types of glitch cities, each with their own unique traits and methods of accessing them. These methods can include glitches like wrong warps, corrupting screen data, or even going beyond a map's boundaries. Today, I'll be breaking down the different types of glitch cities and some of the ways that you can get to them yourself. But first, just a real quick note, if you guys want to see more videos like this, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I won't take any more of your time with this, just wanted to throw that out there. So, how many different types of glitch cities are there? Well, let's just start with the basics. If you're familiar with what a glitch city is, then you may know of it from the Safari Zone escape method. In short, the player forces a game state where the Safari Zone step counter is still active on the overworld. When being recalled from certain routes or towns, the game transports the player to an unintended exit upon leaving the Safari Gate. This type of glitch city is referred to as a valid source map glitch city. In this case, the game is taking the player to a real map, such as Pallet Town, but the graphical data for the area is all messed up. So, how does one get themselves out of the Safari Zone while keeping the step counter active? There's two main methods to accomplish this, and the first involves causing a whiteout in the Safari Zone. You can do this pretty easily with a single poison Pokemon. The second way is to utilize an error in the game code to make the clerk think that you're entering for the first time. Back in my Caterpie video, I touched on the concept of map scripts. Essentially, these scripts contain data for trainers, events, and the state of other various things on any given map. Once the player pays and enters the Safari Zone, this changes the state of the map script being used by the game. This state is how the game knows to ask the player if they're leaving early as opposed to giving the welcome message. When attempting to leave and responding no, you automatically get sent back out to the main area, and this is where a flaw in the code comes into play. To be able to automatically walk the player, the game needs to change the script to a different state. Once the auto walk is complete, the map script is supposed to revert back to the previous state. However, traveling to a new screen interrupts this code, meaning that the value for the script state is not updated until you re-enter the gate. This normally doesn't have any adverse effects. Normally. Since the game is programmed to revert the map script back to the previous state, then there's gotta be an area of memory that stores the value for this state. If this stored value were to change before going back to the gate, you could confuse the game into thinking that you haven't paid to enter yet. This sounds like it's gonna get pretty complicated, doesn't it? No, this value doesn't get permanently stored, so all you have to do is save and reset in the Safari Zone. This changes the stored script value back to its default state, 0. Now, when you enter the gate again, you get asked if you want to join. When saying no, the player is correctly sent south, but the step counter doesn't get removed, so the recall still happens once 500 steps have passed. This delay in the script change lets you escape the Safari Zone, but what activates the glitch city effects after being recalled to a different area? It doesn't look like it's tied to the Safari Zone, as being recalled in Fuchsia seems to have no glitchy effects. So what's going on? When the game has to warp the player to a new area, there's two important pieces of data that it needs. The first is the next map ID, and the second is called the displacement ID. Simply put, these two values contain what map to put the player in, and where on the map they should spawn. Now, you would think that every single exit has these two values hard-coded, but that's not the case. When leaving the Safari Zone gate, the game is not always set to send you back to Fuchsia. Instead, the game uses a different value stored in memory. This value, at address D365, can be updated through several different means, such as flying to a town, entering or exiting a cave or gate, and transitioning between outdoor routes. While it doesn't appear true in every case, this value usually contains the map ID for the last outdoor map that was visited. This value gets called often to take the player back to the overworld after exiting houses and other interiors, and the Safari Gate is no exception. When leaving the gate, the game loads this value, which should be Fuchsia, and displacement ID number 4. As I mentioned before, the displacement ID contains data on where to place our trainer after leaving an area. For Fuchsia City, displacement 4 puts the player right outside of the Safari Zone. Unlike the map ID, this value is hard-coded for the exit, meaning that leaving the Safari Gate will always use displacement 4. Let's stop for a quick moment to recap. Through using a whiteout or the script flaw we covered, we can leave the Safari Zone while the step counter is still active. Upon being recalled and leaving the Safari Gate, the player is taken to displacement number 4 of the last outdoor map that was loaded into memory. For maps that contain a lot of interiors, this works just fine. For example, Cerulean City uses displacement 4 when leaving the bike shop, so if you perform the escape and get recalled in Cerulean, you'll be taken to the outside of the bike shop after leaving the gate. For Saffron, you come out at the Pokemart. But what about maps that don't have a lot of interiors, and therefore don't have a valid displacement? Well, this is where a glitch city comes in. When attempting to travel to a map through an invalid displacement, the game interprets garbage data as the next coordinates. But the effects go a little deeper than that. To keep track of the player and what's currently being loaded on screen, the game uses the player coordinates as well as a map view pointer. This map view pointer basically tells the game what to load based on the tile in the top left corner of the screen, not the player's position. When warping to a new area, the game needs to know what tiles to draw on the next screen. Since the displacement ID is using garbage data, the map view pointer also gets sent to an unintended area. As you might guess, garbage in means garbage out, so the result is a map that looks far, far different than what was intended. There isn't much room to move around in these areas, and sometimes you can't move at all as soon as you enter the glitch city. However, there are two notable places that give the player some room to move around. The first is when you get recalled from Sea Route 20, which is to the right of Cinnabar. There's a strange strip of land surrounded by building blocks, water, and other random tiles. Hopping over one of the ledges or going too far in a single direction will soft lock, and doors, signs, and cutting trees doesn't work. The objects that are normally attached to these tiles don't load in because they use the map view pointer to know when to display them. Since the map view pointer thinks we're in a separate area of the map, no objects are loaded at the player's position. Moving on, the second one of these maps can be accessed when you get recalled from Cycling Road. Walking around is a little bit of a pain since the player is still forced to move downwards like you normally would. There's some water tiles blocking the path here, but unfortunately you can't surf on them because it's Cycling Road. I could go through each of the different glitch cities that could be encountered through the Safari escape method, but that's something that should really get its own video. Keep in mind that this is just one type of glitch city, so there's more we need to cover. Speaking of which, let's move on to the next one. The second type of glitch city is called a Phantom City. I can explain them for you, but first, we need to talk about parallel universes. No, seriously, if you've ever seen the infamous Watch for Rolling Rocks video from Panenkoic, Phantom Cities are similar to Mario 64's parallel universes, where the same map continues to repeat out of bounds. Another popular term for this is the looping map glitch. Okay, I'm gonna cut into the video here for a second. While looking around for more information, I found a video from a channel you're probably familiar with, the Zaz Glitch. In this video, they talk about Phantom Cities and how they work. I scrolled to the comments, and it looks like I was far from the first person to make the Mario 64 connection. This is pretty hilarious, and I just wanted to point it out. Anyways. However, these Phantom Cities aren't as easy to access as the first type of glitch city we talked about. To be able to see these, the player needs to be able to walk through walls. Now, what kind of crazy Generation 1 BS do you think we need to find to walk through walls? If you guessed doing the Safari escape again, then you'd be right. Yeah, this is actually pretty easy to achieve, though the setup's a little precise. It essentially combines the two different methods of escaping the Safari Zone, as we'll need to escape twice. We'll start by entering with a single poison Pokemon, then use the save and reset method to escape early. Now, we keep the poison Pokemon from feigning and walk around until the last step of the Safari game. Unfortunately, there's no way to tell what step you're on since the counter only appears in the Safari zone, but either way, with the last step, you'll want to jump over a ledge. This will stop the player mid-air and activate the recall. I think it's fairly straightforward what happens here, but the game needs to move you down 2 tiles when jumping over a ledge. There aren't any ledges in the Safari zone, so there's nothing in the code to prevent the announcer from activating while you're airborne. Since we got warped before landing, the game still thinks we're in the air, meaning we can walk through walls. But leaving the Safari gate normally will remove this ability. And that's why we have a poison Pokemon, as causing a whiteout in the Safari gate will successfully get you out of there and keep the glitch state. Alright, so now we can walk through walls. So how do we access Phantom City? Well, they specifically occur when the X coordinate of the player is greater than the X boundary for the map.
Huh?
Have you ever seen a game crash that occurs sometimes when walking out of bounds? This is because the game attempts to load the adjacent map, and if there isn't one, the game will take the player to an invalid map that automatically freezes the game. But if you find a way around this one-tile connection, like entering the route from the outside, you can bypass this, revealing an open space with some glitchy grass tiles. If we keep walking to the right, we eventually find a blank copy of the map that we're on. This is where the name Phantom City comes in, as none of the NPCs are present and no interior entrances work. The cool thing about this kind of glitch city is that you can travel from Phantom area to Phantom area as long as they connect outside to the north or south. In this Route 1 example, I can walk up to a Phantom Viridian City, and then Route 2, and Pewter City. Going south, I can make my way down to an empty pallet town and keep going to reach a Phantom Cinnabar Island. If you walk past the Phantom City and keep going right, you'll hit another patch of weird grassy tiles, and then another copy of the Phantom City. This map will horizontally repeat until the X coordinate hits its max at 255, where you get another game crash. You can also encounter what's called an out-of-bounds glitch city by using the same process for Phantom Towns, but with the Y coordinate instead. In this case, walking to Route 3 from the top of Pewter City causes us to properly transition, but we appear at the very bottom of the map's coordinates. Since these areas in the maps are never used, can you guess what they're filled with? Yep, garbage data. Though there's not much you can do with Phantom Towns, it's pretty interesting to see an empty version of some of these areas. There's a few circumstances where an out-of-bounds glitch city can be useful, but for now, we're going to stay on topic. These next types of glitch cities aren't as complicated to understand as the others, but now's a good time to reiterate that these have been messed up versions of pre-existing maps. I bring this up because they're not to be confused with an unused map, which can look glitchy on its own. Speaking of which, we have descent glitch maps. Since these are invalid areas of the game, it's not quite as easy to access them as others. However, we can make use of a glitch that we've seen before to get us there. Back in my Caterpie Ace video, I showed off a glitch called the Expanded Items Pack. To get the Expanded Items Pack, you'll need to first get 255 of one item in a single step. The easiest way to do this is by encountering a couple missing though. This allows for some trickery that gives us access to the game's code through the item menu, and through this menu, there's a lot you can do. Seriously, there's even another walk through walls method that uses this. But we don't need to worry about that. What we're going to do is swap an item to alter where the next warp will send us. This specific setup works for the Japanese version of Yellow, but taking a single item and swapping it with the 34th item in the expanded pack changes our next indoor exit. The swapped item's ID gets used to determine what map we get taken to when leaving the Pokemon Center. If we do this with a TM31, which has an ID of E7, this gets us to a place called the map E7 Glitch Hell, one of the few descent glitch maps. How does it get its name? Take a look. Yup, just another case of Generation 1 turning itself into creepypasta material. Nothing to see here. The last few types of glitch cities on our list aren't particularly interesting, but they are glitch cities nonetheless. Let's start with a redirection glitch map. You wouldn't immediately notice it from looking at the maps, but they get their name because entering one of them will send you to a different map. That is, if you can get around the constant game crashes that usually happen. And this leads me back to the crashes that you get when trying to cross through an invalid map connection. Sometimes this can produce some glitchy effects on the screen before crashing. It looks like the community typically lumps this in with glitch cities, calling them an out-of-bounds glitch hell. That's kind of it, nothing really special. But hey, if you thought that explanation was quick, then check out the last type of glitch city on our list, the freeze glitch map. Yep, they do exactly what you think. In almost every circumstance, they crash the game. So yeah, a little anticlimactic, but now you know a little bit more about glitch cities and the different tricks that people use to get to them. I hope you guys found this video entertaining. If you did, remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to get notified when my next video comes out. With these glitch videos, I'm going to continue to build on the concepts that we've been learning and go farther and farther each time. I genuinely appreciate all the support you guys have been giving me, and thank you so much for stopping by the lab.
See you next time!